El Salvador, a country of volcanoes and surprising curiosities you didn't know about. Did you know that El Salvador is known as the country of volcanoes? A place with breathtaking natural landscapes, a culture rich in history and traditions, and fascinating secrets that few know. But what makes this small Central American country so special? What interesting facts and curiosities would surprise you to learn more about El Salvador? Today we are going to dive into these and many more facts that will surely change your vision of this fascinating place. Do you dare to discover what many don't know about El Salvador? Stay with us until the end and get ready to be amazed. El Salvador, the smallest country in Central America, is a place full of history, culture, and amazing landscapes. Although less known than some of its neighbors, this country has a natural and cultural richness that deserves to be explored. From its volcanic geography to its incredible biodiversity to its fascinating history, El Salvador is a destination full of surprises. Known for being the country of volcanoes, El Salvador has more than 20 volcanoes in its territory, many of them active. However, its volcanic geography not only gives rise to beautiful landscapes, but also to a unique life, both in flora and fauna, which has earned it worldwide recognition. Volcanoes in El Salvador are a distinctive feature of the country. Some of these, such as Izalca, San Vicente, and Ilamatepec, have been responsible for some of the most important eruptions in the country's history. The Izalca volcano, in particular, is one of the most active, and its impressive cone has been a sort of lantern for sailors sailing off the Salvadoran coast. El Salvador is also home to Lake Coatepec, one of the most beautiful and deepest lakes in the country, formed in a volcanic caldera. This natural basin, surrounded by mountains and vegetation, is a point of attraction for both locals and tourists looking to relax in its crystal-clear waters. El Salvador has a population of over 6,500,000, making it one of the most densely populated countries in Central America. The majority of the population is concentrated in the western part of the country, in the region of San Salvador, the capital. Salvadoran culture is deeply influenced by its indigenous, colonial, and modern history, fusing pre-Columbian traditions with the Spanish influences that arrived during colonization. It is common to see in the cities the colorful manifestations of its cultural identity, which are reflected in its festivals, handicrafts, and gastronomy. One of the most representative dishes of the country is the pupusa, a thick tortilla stuffed with various ingredients such as beans, cheese, pork rinds, among others. Pupusas are the national dish, and its consumption is so deeply rooted that there is a National Pupusa Day, celebrated on November 10th of each year. El Salvador's economy has had an interesting evolution, going through several stages since its independence in 1821. For a long time, agriculture was the engine of the economy, with coffee as the main export product. In fact, in the 19th century, the country experienced a coffee bonanza when international coffee prices reached very high levels. However, fluctuations in international markets and the effects of natural phenomena, such as hurricanes and drought, seriously affected the country's agriculture. Today, El Salvador has diversified its economy, with sectors such as manufacturing, services, and technology gaining increasing prominence. One of the most fascinating aspects of El Salvador is its natural diversity. Despite its small size, the country boasts a wide variety of ecosystems. From the coastal areas on the Pacific, with its beaches and marine biodiversity, to the mountains and cloud forests in the interior. El Imposable National Park is one of the main points of interest for nature lovers. This park, located in the western part of the country, is home to numerous species of flora and fauna, many of them endemic. In fact, El Salvador is one of the most biodiverse countries in Central America, despite its size. Among its best-known species are the toucan, the quetzal, and several species of spider monkeys. In terms of marine biodiversity, El Salvador's coasts are an important refuge for several species of sea turtles. El Cuco Beach, for example, is known to be a place where olive ridley turtles come to nest. The country is also home to several renowned dive sites, such as Isla de los Volcanes and Isla Ahuachapan, where incredible underwater landscapes and rich marine life can be observed. El Salvador also has a rich tradition in art and literature. Although Salvadoran literature is not as well known internationally, writers such as Roque Dalton and Claudia Lars have left an important mark on the country's literary culture. Roque Dalton, for example, is considered one of El Salvador's most influential poets and a key figure in the country's political and social history. His poetic work and his commitment to social struggles are remembered and studied throughout the world. One of the most complex aspects of El Salvador's recent history was the civil war that took place between 1979 and 1992. This armed conflict, which involved the government of El Salvador and various guerrilla groups, resulted in thousands of deaths and forced displacements. The Civil War left a deep mark on Salvadoran society, but also resulted in a series of peace accords that were signed in 1992, allowing the country to begin rebuilding its social and political fabric. Following the end of the war, El Salvador experienced a transition to democracy and economic development, although not without challenges. Gang-related violence and social inequality remain major problems in the country. However, El Salvador has made significant progress in recent decades, especially in areas such as education, health, and infrastructure. Education in El Salvador has improved markedly since the peace accords, with the government implementing a series of reforms to increase access to education and improve its quality. However, the country still faces challenges in terms of educational coverage, especially in rural areas, where many children have difficulty accessing basic education. In terms of health, El Salvador has made progress in reducing infant mortality and improving life expectancy, although the public health system remains insufficient compared to other countries in the region. One of the most recent events that has put El Salvador in the world's eye is its adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender. In 2021, El Salvador became the first country in the world to officially adopt this cryptocurrency, which has generated both excitement and controversy. The measure aims to include more people in the country's financial system and attract foreign investment. However, Bitcoin's volatility has raised concerns about the risks this decision may have for the country's economy. Despite the criticism, the government of El Salvador continues to promote the use of Bitcoin, with the creation of a Bitcoin city near the Concagua volcano, where cryptocurrencies are planned to be used on a massive scale. El Salvador is also known for its friendly and hospitable people. Despite the social and economic challenges facing the country, Salvadorans are characterized by their resilience and their ability to find joy in the little things in life. The warmth of its people is one of the reasons why many tourists are attracted to El Salvador, despite the economic and security difficulties it has faced in recent years. In short, El Salvador is a small country full of contrasts, with a natural, cultural, and historical richness that makes it a unique place in the world. From its volcanic geography to its beaches, its people, and its history, this country has much to offer. Although it faces significant challenges, such as violence and poverty, El Salvador remains a country full of hope and potential, a place where history and the future are in constant transformation. Undoubtedly, the land of volcanoes has much more to offer than most people realize, and remains a fascinating destination for those seeking to discover its secrets. El Salvador, despite being a small country in terms of geography, has a rich cultural tradition that makes it unique in the region. One of the most fascinating aspects of its culture is the influence of pre-Columbian civilizations, particularly that of the Papilles, an indigenous group that inhabited the region before the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors. The Papilles, who spoke Nahuatl, left a deep imprint on the country's language and customs. Indigenous languages are still spoken in some rural areas, although Spanish is the predominant language. The indigenous cultural heritage is reflected in traditional celebrations, gastronomy, and the arts. El Salvador is also known for its vibrant art scene. Painting, sculpture, and music are some of the most prominent forms of expression. Salvadoran art, especially muralism, has played an important role in preserving the country's historical memory. During the Civil War years, many artists used muralism as a way to resist violence and express social struggle. The legacy of Salvadoran artists continues today, with galleries and museums dedicated to promoting their work. One of the most important is the Museo de Arte de El Salvador, MARTE, which houses an extensive collection of contemporary art. Music also occupies a central place in El Salvador's cultural life. The country is famous for its folk music style, which blends indigenous, African, and European influences. One of the most representative genres is cumbia, which has been adopted throughout Central America, but with a very particular style in El Salvador. In addition, the marimba, a percussion instrument that has its roots in Africa, has become a musical symbol of the country. National and regional festivities often include performances of traditional music, as well as folkloric dances that tell stories of the daily life and traditions of the Salvadoran people. One of the most important celebrations in El Salvador is Holy Week, which has a unique character in the country. During this week, cities and towns are filled with processions, theatrical performances, and religious festivals. Sawdust carpets, a tradition in which residents decorate the streets with colorful figures made of sawdust and flowers, are one of the most distinctive aspects of the celebration. These carpets, which may represent biblical scenes or traditional motifs, are a sign of the deep spiritual commitment of the Salvadoran people. Holy Week is one of the most anticipated festivities of the year, both for residents and tourists who wish to experience the devotion and art that characterizes the Salvadoran people. In terms of gastronomy, El Salvador has a vast variety of dishes that reflect its history and cultural diversity. Pupusas are, without a doubt, the most internationally known dish, but Salvadoran cuisine offers many other delicious delicacies. Yuca with chicharrón is another of the most traditional dishes, in which yuca, a tuber of the region, is served with fried meat. Panes con pollo is another dish that stands out, especially during festivities. In addition, beverages such as atol de elote, a hot drink made from corn, and horchata, a mixture of rice and spices, are very popular. The influence of indigenous and Spanish cuisine is clearly visible in these dishes, which combine local ingredients with culinary techniques brought by the colonizers. El Salvador is also known for its handicraft production. The country has a rich textile tradition, and many villages in the La Palma region in the north of the country are famous for their colorful fabric products, ranging from tapestries to traditional clothing. Handmade weavings and hand-painted ceramics are also highly prized. Salvadoran handicrafts reflect both the natural beauty of the country and the stories and legends that have been passed down through the centuries. Many of these works are sold in local markets and souvenir stores, where tourists can take home a piece of Salvadoran culture. El Salvador has a wealth of legends and myths that are part of the country's folklore. These stories, which are passed down from generation to generation, often feature supernatural beings and elements of nature. One of the best-known myths is that of the Llorona, a woman who cries for the loss of her children and who, according to legend, appears near rivers and lakes. The legend of La Ciguanaba, a female figure that seduces men and then transforms into a monstrous creature, is also very popular in rural regions. These legends are not only part of El Salvador's cultural identity, but also reflect the beliefs and values of the Salvadoran people, many of which are rooted in indigenous religion and worldview. On a social level, El Salvador has witnessed a great evolution in the latter part of the 20th century and early 21st century. Despite the challenges it has faced, especially related to violence and poverty, the Salvadoran people have shown a great capacity to reinvent themselves and adapt. The country's youth are increasingly involved in cultural, political, and social movements, seeking new forms of expression and change. Urban movements, especially in music and digital art, are gaining ground, demonstrating that El Salvador has a cultural landscape in constant transformation. An interesting curiosity about El Salvador is its unique transportation system. On city streets and in rural towns, buses, known as chicken buses, are a popular form of transportation. These buses, originally school transportation vehicles from the United States, have been decorated with bright colors and a variety of artistic details. They are an integral part of daily life in El Salvador, and their vibrant appearance reflects the joyful and resilient spirit of the Salvadoran people. These buses are a showcase of the country's creativity, where the reuse of resources and customization have become a tradition. El Salvador, with its warm people, rich culture, and fascinating history, is a country full of surprises. Through its music, art, cuisine, and legends, the country keeps alive a tradition that remains central to the lives of all its inhabitants. Every corner of El Salvador has something to offer, and the best way to get to know it is to explore every detail of its vibrant culture. If you have been surprised by all that El Salvador has to offer, don't forget to subscribe to our World and Evolution channel. Don't miss any of our content about amazing places, fun facts, and much more. Also, if you are looking to improve your personal and financial life, visit our website selfmadamillionaires.online. There you will find exclusive content to help you grow as a self-taught millionaire. Join our community and keep learning with us.